Hey guys, I want to talk with you a little bit today about how often you should compliment a woman that you are romantically involved with or trying to be involved with or maintain involvement with. Now, there's no hard and fast number of times that I'm possibly going to be able to give you here. And of course, this is different to every person, every situation to a large extent, but the principle and the concept, I think, is more or less universal. And ironically enough, this same psychology and the principles, as I said, that I'm going to talk about here, it kind of goes both ways. Even women can make this mistake with their man, and I think more typically it's the guys that make this mistake. I think women, just in general, become a lot more conscious of this a lot more earlier on in their lives because they get probably more attention on the average than most men do. For the most part, I would say. But let's break this down a little bit. If you over compliment a woman, let's say, it really will start to work adversely and against you and get you further away from probably what you're trying to do, and that's to either gain closeness or maintain your closeness with this woman in a romantic sense once again. So, if you think about, when you smother somebody with attention, you give them too much. What sorts of things does this tend to do? First of all, it inflates their ego, of course, which is, you want people to feel good around you, but it gets to a certain point where this is not always a good thing, right? That's issue number one with it. It also can have a way of making you come across as a fan to this person, right? What does that mean? Think about a celebrity and people that are just following in their every footstep and just, falling over them and just overdoing it with the compliments and just showering them once again with this attention. That's kind of the dynamic that starts to rear its head when you overdo it with your compliments. And, if you think about what you should be aiming for if you're trying to build some sort of relationship with a woman is that you're not a fan. That's going to turn her off. You are at the very minimum equal, let's say. If not, you're trying to make yourself come across as more valuable. Hopefully, realistically, you are, a valuable person, of course, and that shines through. But once again, when you overdo it with the compliments, you work against yourself in this fashion. You start to feel like a fan. And what does this do? This also has a way of elevating the woman unnecessarily up on a pedestal. And although women say that they want to be made to feel special and all this kind of stuff, if you put them too high on a pedestal, they start to look down on you and they start to become less attracted to you, quite sadly enough. It's just the way that things work. And once again, that's just getting you further and further away from what you're probably after. And the last thing that I can think of, and this is probably the most damning one, if you're really overdoing it with these compliments, this is the sign of somebody who's obsessed with the other person. And if any of you have been in a situation like this before, when somebody becomes obsessed with you, it starts to get creepy, and it starts to get to the point where it just makes you uncomfortable. And you have to think about that, in the way that you're acting. If you're just showering this person with compliments, you're giving them way too much, way too often, it does start to give off that kind of creeper vibe. And if you get to this point, and this is where you're at with things, this is going to send the other person running for the hills. They're not going to want to have any involvement with you. And once again, once you reach the breaking point, I think there are some instances where things are more or less unreconcilable, or that person's never going to look at you in the same way that they maybe once did in the beginning before you started pouring on all these compliments in such a fashion. So the thing that I want to talk with you about, and the analogy that I want to make, and hopefully this is the piece that sticks with you, is just to remember this analogy that I'm going to draw here. And I'm going to equate you giving compliments to a woman is like you using a pepper shaker, okay? Now think about the way that you use a pepper shaker in your normal, daily life, right? Well, first of all, you don't unscrew the cap on the pepper shaker and dump the whole thing on top of your plate of food, right? This would be completely disgusting. This would be repulsive. And that's the exact same thing that happens when you shower a woman with compliments in the same way that you might dump a lidless container of pepper on top of your plate, it's just going to completely kill things. It's just going to ruin it, right? And there's, once again, there's no undoing that. You can't pick every single one of those little grains of pepper out of your meal once you've done that. So that's the most egregious offense that you could make. But think about that. Keep the lid on the pepper shaker. Now the second thing is, like, you're probably not using pepper every single day or at every single meal or at every single plate of food that you're eating. So the same way, like, you don't need to be putting out compliments on a daily basis, right? I mean, this should be kind of like a once in a while thing. And when you do it, right, what do you do with the pepper shaker? You use it sparingly. You kind of lightly dash, just onto your food. You don't sit there shaking the pepper shaker, for minutes on end. And that's just, like I said, the analogy that you need to remember when you're doling out these compliments to your woman. It's just like a little bit in a more sparing fashion goes a lot longer of a ways than just caking it on heavy and hard and just going way overboard with this stuff. And if you've ever been in this situation before, like I said, this is something that every man on this earth has probably made this mistake at one point or other. And like I said, if you've been in this situation before where you've been the guy that unscrewed the lid and dumped the pepper on top of the woman, you know the effect and you know the outcome of that one. So lastly, I want to leave you with this also, is that, don't mistake what I'm saying here. You can't, like, never compliment your woman. I mean, you have to, do your job as a caring, loving partner and make this other person feel special and feel wanted and, feel beautiful at various points in time. But as I said, you don't need to do it every single day. I mean, even if you are a person in a long established relationship, and imagine like giving a compliment to somebody every single day or multiple times in a day, at some point it cheapens it, right? It makes you seem disingenuous, and it makes it seem like it may not mean as much to her or be more relevant versus like the every once in a while kind of like, hey, your hair looks beautiful today. I really like what you did there. Your outfit looks amazing today, or whatever. Just a little, like I said, sparingly used here or there, just to kind of let her know that you still are attracted to her. You still feel the way you feel about her. That goes a lot longer of a ways. And I don't care what any woman says out there to refute this. I mean, I have seen this firsthand, and the funny thing is, I think a lot of them like say and think that they want constant compliments and all this kind of attention, but I guarantee you the second you do that, the second you give that to them, is the second that things turn around and they're going to start running for the hills. So just remember that your woman needs compliments just the same way that the grass needs sunshine. You can't neglect to do it ever, but you have to do it in a sparing and, let's say, responsible, metered out sense. Just the same way that you use a pepper shaker. Remember that. Remember that approach and that analogy, and this should help you out a lot out there. So, hope you guys are having a great day. We'll talk to you real soon.